Welcome to the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund series on challenges of modern day policing. I'm Jason Johnson, president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, joined by Bill Gleason, our police use of force expert. Bill, today we're going to talk about action versus reaction, which is something that every law enforcement officer at some point in their career has been trained in. It's a phenomenon, it's a dynamic when officers face dangerous encounters that they learned about. And so we just want to help educate our viewers about it today. And in so doing, we have some videotapes that we can refer to show real life scenarios. Well, first off, can you tell me what is action versus reaction?
An officer's ability to react to a suspect's actions, it depends on the officer's awareness, their threat assessment, whether it's a spontaneous event or something that that catches them completely off guard. So it takes anywhere from 3/4 of a second to 1.5 seconds for an officer to react to a suspect's action. So as I said, it puts us at a disadvantage tactically. So there's certain things that officers can do, like moving to cover, using good command presence. They may draw their weapon, and I know sometimes that bothers people when an officer draws a weapon, but it cuts down on the time it takes them to react. As long as they can explain why they felt that they needed to draw their weapon.
So put as simply as possible, things happen very quickly, and suspects who sometimes intend to cause the officer harm can do so very quickly, quicker than the officer can react unless they are prepared.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's look at the first video. This happens in South Carolina just in the last couple of years, and the police officer receives a call for service for a disorderly person at a liquor store who had stolen something from one of the customers at the liquor store. And the officer responds and finds a person matching the description of the suspect.
Come here. Stop. 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 Take your hands out your pocket. Take your hands out your pocket. If you don't stop, so I'm gonna tase you. I'm not playing with you. Take your hands out your pocket. Take your hands out your pocket. Take your hands out your pocket. Shots fired! Shots fired! Dispatch, I'm in! This ain't gonna stop, I'm in! I'm a Tyson. Dispatch, help.
Okay, so what did we just see?
I think this emphasizes the dangers of modern day policing. This is nothing is routine anymore, but a low risk call for service for somebody that was involved in a theft, and it escalates to an officer being shot. So the officer is legally justified in stopping this individual. He's doing his job. He got a call for service. As he approaches the individual, he tries to engage him in conversation, giving him verbal direction, and the individual does not respond to that. So the officer tries to de-escalate. He tries to use communication skills, and then when the suspect will not show his hands, he's a potential deadly force threat at that point when he refuses to show his hands. The officer does a good job. He continues to communicate. He tries he gets his taser out. He's thinking about less lethal. And then in a split second, when he made that decision, he was able to pull that weapon out, turn, and fire on the officer. You can see the officer was just at such a tactical disadvantage trying to react. And then obviously he was shot and retreated back to his car. But that's a perfect example of that person had time to plan his action out, initiated that action, and that officer had his taser out, and it just, unfortunately, he was not able to transition, and fortunately he survived, but it just emphasizes the dangers that not anything is a routine call, and that a suspect's action is going to be quicker than the officer's ability to react.
Also explains why police officers are always so focused on hands. You always see, every time you see a police officer in a situation like that, they're always, let me see your hands, because that's really where the danger is.
The hands are what kills, so that's what they're trained to do.
Okay, our next scenario takes place in Napa County, California, very recent, within the last couple of months from us filming this. And this is a traffic stop of an individual at night by a deputy. One singular deputy on the scene is talking with this gentleman, and you'll see what happens.
Roll it down. Roll down the window. Roll down the window. Shots fired, shots fired.
All right, what did we see there?
There's another example of the danger of modern day police work. This is a routine traffic stop that escalates into a deadly force situation. So the officer does an outstanding job. She does a passenger side approach, which officers are trained to do at night. Gives them a little bit of advantage, may keep them out of the roadway. They can use their lights in their cruiser to an advantage to illuminate inside the vehicle and also kind of impair the vision of the driver. She does a great job. When she comes around to the driver's side, she has her flashlight out, she's engaging him in conversation, trying to get his information. And again, another example of you can see him kind of planning it out, and then he's able to access a weapon, turn, and fire at her.
Shots fired, shots fired.
She does an outstanding job. This is why training is so important for police officers. She doesn't overreact to it. She's shot at. She moves, she shoots in a stressful situation, which is very difficult. She moves to cover on the other side of the vehicle, and she wins this confrontation. This guy tried to kill her, and she was able to survive the initial attack because his action was quicker than her ability to react, but her training kicked in. She moved to cover, she changed her position, and then was able to stop the deadly force threat against her by using deadly force on this individual.
So another example of why it's so critical that law enforcement officers trained, prepared, had proper tactics on a traffic stop, and how sometimes law enforcement officers have to have that tactical advantage, especially officer deputy by herself at night, unknown what's going to happen, and she was prepared for it, and she was able to survive the encounter.
That's why officers are given some of the privileges they are about getting people out of the vehicle, because the courts understand the inherent risks in traffic stops. They are dangerous, especially at night, especially by yourself. So fortunately, she did an outstanding job and survived this deadly force encounter against her.
Right. Thanks, Bill. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund Challenges of Modern Day Policing.